So for waiting, today we've got, we're fortunate enough to have Terry McAdon and Sasha Marinkic here to us about the new data division joining. And with that, I'll pass over to Sasha to get things going.
Okay, so Radeon Software Crimson. With the recent formation of the Radeon Technologies Group, we have decided to really look at the software as a product by itself. We look at the experiences that the software delivers, and we are very cognizant of the fact that the software is basically bringing out the best in hardware, and that software should be treated equally to the hardware. So RTG is focused on harnessing our graphics talent across the company to establish initiatives for leadership in this emerging immersive computing opportunities. And it really starts with software. So last year, AMD Catalyst graphics driver has been boosting visual performance, adding new features and capabilities. And the market has embraced Catalyst Omega very much so that in the last 12 months, it has been downloaded for over 60 million times. And the customer satisfaction really jumped up by close to 20%. And this was a special edition driver that we are very, very pleased by the response from the industry and how successful it was. So this year will mark the new era for AMD. And the new era is going to be marking the beginning of the fully immersive computing experiences. So to indicate this new beginning and the fact that we're not just releasing a driver, but what many could consider a mini operating system, given that it includes libraries and effects and everything, we're giving it a new name. And that name is Radeon Software Crimson Edition. In 2015, or over the last 12 months, we have released 3 major vehicle releases. And Omega was one of them, and 2 more releases for the Windows 10 operating system. And you'll notice that AMD driver was very stable, very reliable, with hardly ever any issues reported online on our vehicle certified drivers. So in the past, we had a vehicle certified driver per month, and then in past 12 months, we had 3. We understand that 12 may be too many and 3 may be too few. So starting now, we are committing to to releasing up to 6 major vehicle releases and additional beta releases on the need to know or as requested basis or as needed basis. So with that, we're announcing the Radeon Software Crimson Edition that is completely redesigned and optimized and supercharged software suite. What it does is that it delivers redesigned functionality, supercharged graphics performance, remarkable new features, and innovation that redefines the overall user experience. How the naming works, for those who didn't join or who didn't see the November 2 announcement, is that basically the name of the software is Radeon Software. And every year we are going to have a major version, and that version is going to be a shade of red. Crimson is a shade of red, and we have decided that the first ever Radeon software is going to carry the name Crimson Edition. And then for the minor versions, we are going to have the year.month revision in the name. So for example, if it's November 2015, it's going to have 15.1. If it's, for example, February 2016, it's going to be 16.02. So that's how this works. But when we announced this on November 2nd, we got hundreds of articles to talk about Radeon software. And the excitement in the market was really, really high, with thousands of social media and forum comments and interactions. Some of the comments that you can read on the right-hand side of the screen. And these ones are only on the YouTube that we posted a video of Raja Kaduri and Terry Macedon talking about Radeon Software Crimson Edition. So the excitement is definitely there, and you can tell that the end users are as excited about Radeon Crimson as we are. When you look at the Radeon Crimson Edition, what some of the major pillars are, stability is definitely a foundation of this driver. It all starts with stability and reliability, and delivering that seamless, effortless opportunity for the end users to be just intuitively using their driver without complications. And we built on that. So we built on the user experience and the user interface, on delivering remarkable features and really supercharging the drivers with performance and power optimizations. So how does that look like in numbers? It's the user interface is up to 10 times faster than the Catalyst Control Center. The Radeon Software Crimson Edition has 12 new or enhanced capabilities that we're delivering, and up to 20% more performance in a number of games. In terms of the power savings, really stunning game-changing efficiency that is up to 1.8 times power savings on what you would see in the previously released Catalyst drivers. So you can tell that this one is coming packed with features, packed with performance optimizations, and really targeting the sophisticated gamers that are looking for more than just frames per second and looking for smooth gameplay, immersive visuals, and really game-changing efficiency. So with that, I'll pass it over to Terry Macedon to take you through all of these pillars that we have outlined and provide a deep dive view of those ones.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Good afternoon, everybody, depending on where in the world you are. Good morning, good evening. We are doing this briefing from Seoul, South Korea. Sasha and I have been traveling around the world the last few weeks, giving updates to everybody about this exciting story. And so what I'll do is I'll go through each one of the sections one by one, and there's probably 3 to 5 slides in every section. And I'll give you the highlights and the important information about this release, and that will be the end of it. In terms of introduction, like I said, so my name is Terry Macedon, and I'm in charge of software strategy at AMD, and have been doing this for a long time. The first thing we'd like to talk about is the stability found within this release, and I'll go to the next slide. So the highlights that we're talking about here is that last year we released Catalyst Omega. Catalyst Omega was the last of the big Catalyst releases, and we did some very extensive testing on it. We took that amount of testing we did with Catalyst Omega and increased it even more. So what we're talking about here is with Crimson, we've now have 100% more automated test cases. We have 25% more manual test cases. The difference being the first one is automatic scripts being run in our QA department. The second one is typically a user or a person sitting at a system playing games or doing a bunch of different testing manually. We also have 15% more system configurations that we're testing. And this year we're introducing the newest and the latest technology. For example, the virtual reality headsets and the 4K displays. At the same time, what we thought was very interesting is to ask these to tell us a very simple question. What is the number one issue that you have with Catalyst? So we did that again. We asked users in a bunch of different forums around the world, what is your number one issue that you have? And we set up a separate and independent team to look at those issues. And on the list here, you'll see a sample of the top 10 issues. And of course, the good news is that we are aware of them, and we fixed every single one. We had a dedicated team working on reproducing, debugging, and fixing these issues. And the reason why this is interesting is this is above and beyond and separate from the 100% more automated test cases that we talked about earlier. So we took that and we set a foundation for stability, which of course we still do throughout the year. We still get reports from end users on amd.com/report. So if you have English-speaking users, please get that information out and send it to them. Okay, so that was the first pillar. That is the stability. That's the foundation of everything we do. We start off with that not by accident, but by design. We wanted to show that the first thing that we're more concerned about, aside from cool new features and cool new performance and all these other things, is a foundation of stability and very solid software. The next pillar that we'll talk about is the user experience. The user experience is very, very interesting for us because it resulted in the creation of a brand new user interface. So this is the first look that you'll ever get at something called Radeon Settings. And Radeon Settings is a direct replacement of our old user interface known as Catalyst Control Center, or CCC, as it was affectionately known by its users. CCC, of course, is something that started off even before AMD's purchase of ATI. This was something that we started about 14 or so years ago as ATI, and it was our way of having an application that controlled all the graphics card settings. Throughout the years, of course, as you know, software gets old, so having something for over 10 years, especially in the software world, is a problem because things get very old and they take forever. So what we're going to talk about now is Radeon Settings, which is the new application. We asked people, what is it that you need the new application to do? Well, the first problem that we had found is that Catalyst Control Center, or CCC, took a very long time to start up. So one of our design decisions was, okay, well, we need to make sure that this thing starts up immediately. And although we have the marketing number of 10 times faster startup, what that really means is that something that used to take a few seconds to start up, and you could see the delay. You'd click on the button and you'd sit there and wait, and then wait, and wait, and the thing would appear. All of a sudden, now you're going to click on the button and you'll see it starts immediately. So you'll be able to get that software probably tomorrow. Our plan is to have it to global press for tomorrow for review and stuff like that. And then you'll have about 6 days to play with it to write your articles and get that information. The second thing that was interesting, we said that we wanted to fix, is what we call discoverability. Discoverability means being able to find the control you're looking for quite easily, and you don't have to be an expert in the software to find out where things are. They shouldn't be hidden. So with that, we came up with a new and more intuitive navigation, and we did that by hiring a user experience designer who works with out of our Toronto or Canada office, and his full-time job is basically working on the usability to make sure that the thing is intuitive and people can find the functions that they're looking for. Aside from that, we have a bunch of new functionality. So we have a brand new thing called Game Manager. The Game Manager will look at all the games on your system, and it'll appear under the Gaming tab of the Radeon Settings. And then a user can go and adjust how that game behaves on their system. We have new overdrive controls, which is a way of overclocking your GPU. and we have new video display and Infinity technology interfaces. And the cool thing about this is it was built from scratch or ground up based on Qt. It used to be built on .NET. We now found a different solution which is better for our means, and that solution is Qt, which is a software development framework that enables applications to work across platforms. So we also did a bunch of usability studies with various types of users to make sure that things made sense and things worked good, and sure enough, that was the case. Another interesting fact that we found with this new user interface, displays now initialize or start up much faster. In this example, what we have is taking a projector and plugging it into your laptop. And you know what would happen is when you plug in a projector into your laptop, it takes a few seconds for that projector to actually show the image onto the screen. It turns out that the AMD Catalyst Control Center was using up CPU cycles for non-priority type tasks. And now with Radeon settings, when you plug that same monitor into that same laptop, what used to take over 10 seconds takes 3 seconds. So that was an interesting little benefit that you get from the new user interface in a typical workload or a typical usage scenario. The other feature we have under our user experience section, so we talked about the Radeon settings. There's a lot more really cool stuff within the user interface. So once you get it, play around with it. I'm sure you'll enjoy exploring it and trying out the new things it offers. The other thing that we have in our user experience now is a clean uninstall utility. This one I like to refer to as the reviewer or the benchmarker feature. Because to be quite honest, it's not a feature that is really in demand from our end users. They don't really have a need for a clean uninstall utility. But people who do a lot of benchmarking have always come to us and said, hey, you need to give me a good way of cleaning up my system so that I can just make sure that when I'm doing my benchmarking, I'm at a clean state and I don't run into any issues with leftover registry keys and things like that. So this one is, as we've been presenting this around the world, the reviewers in the room or the people that we talk to are nodding their head saying, yeah, this is great. This is exactly what we needed. So you have this feature there as well. That's kind of what the user experience section looks like. I'm going to jump into the second section now. So we had the user experience. The second section is about the features. So we have a bunch of new features, and they kind of bucket it into 4 different categories. The categories are VR, gaming, display, and video. And we'll spend a couple of slides on each one of these topics. Now, a lot of the stuff that I do is Catalyst related. It's been my main job for over 15 years now. I've been in software, both at ATI and AMD, driving the things in Catalyst and into Radeon Software. I'm going to take a break and let Sasha talk about Liquid VR because that's his pet project as well. So Sasha is kind of the AMD expert on VR. So he'll tell you about what Liquid VR is being offered in the software Crimson.
Thank you. So AMD Liquid VR technology has been announced about 6 months ago at GDC. And since then, it's really taken the industry by storm, with AMD being recognized for our efforts in reducing the latency and really bringing the VR technology to market. We have been working very closely with our industry partners and ecosystem partners, Oculus and HTC, in helping them create an ecosystem where amazing experiences are going to be happening for the end users. Our goal is to develop an ecosystem where the content is going to be immersive, is going to be interactive, and is going to be intuitive. And in order to do this, we are delivering the features that are going to be reducing the latency and really improving the experience that the end users have. So in order to have good experience, you need to have plug-and-play experience. That plug-and-play experience, we deliver the direct-to-display feature. to reduce the latency, we brought to the market the latest data latch and asynchronous shaders, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. And to deliver better performance, we are enabling Affinity multi-GPU. And this is when you have multi-GPUs that work differently than, for example, Crossfire alternate frame rendering, which is that one GPU would be responsible for one eye, which means that the GPUs would be broadcasting and reducing the latency that way. But if you look at the asynchronous shaders and what the asynchronous shaders do, they basically enable more responsive VR experience by doing things in parallel and lowering the latency. So compute engines can be running in parallel to the rendering engine, and by running in parallel, this is how you are reducing the needs to do things serially or one after the other. So, and that, as a consequence, reduces the latency. So this feature has been used by game console developers, and now they can be using it, or game developers can be using it on the PC as well. This is only available on Graphics Core Next, and it's done very efficiently on AMD hardware. So those are some of the features worth mentioning on Liquid VR, and Liquid VR is going to be publicly available with Radeon Software Crimson Edition.
Okay, this is Terry coming back in again, so I'll continue to blast through the features. Next up is FreeSync. I'm going to assume that everybody on this call knows what FreeSync is. If you don't, have a read up on it, and you'll understand it's a great feature from AMD. What we're doing with Radeon Software Crimson Edition is we're enhancing FreeSync with 3 new things. The first is support for DX9 and Crossfire. So that's something that was lacking before. We'll have that. The second thing is we're working with monitor vendors. So this driver has the ability to enable FreeSync through HDMI. So although we're not announcing any HDMI FreeSync monitors at this point in time, we are saying that this is the driver that we're going to monitor vendors with to help them enable such products, namely HDMI through FreeSync monitors. The next feature is called low frame rate compensation, and I have a full slide based on that. But essentially, what this is talking about is being able to take advantage of FreeSync when the frame rate of the game drops below the minimum refresh of the monitor. So the best way to think about it is if you look at that table that we have on this slide, there's lots and lots of words here, but look at the last 2 rows. The last 2 rows in the table talk about the scenario where frames per second is less than the minimum refresh. Both for the VSync on and the VSync off cases, different things happen, but the end result, the quick summary is that the gaming is smoother, the tearing either is eliminated or reduced, and there's less stutter within the game. The way we do that is we introduce an adaptive algorithm which automatically adjusts both the GPU output and the refresh rate as needed to prevent the stuttering and makes the gameplay much more smooth. So that was the FreeSync stuff. The next thing is the frame pacing improvement. So by frame pacing, what we're talking about is the timing and the variance between each frame being rendered and delivered. So it's kind of like walking. When you walk, you take steps at the same pace. You take right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot. If you start alternating the speed of which you're walking and where you went, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot, left foot, what happens is that you stumble or you stutter or you lose the constant smoothness of your walk. That's the nice, easy analogy that I can give on what this feature does, is it makes sure that the frames that are being rendered are coming at a steady and consistent pace. So what's new now, frame pacing on its own is not new. It's something that we introduced in Catalyst Omega last year. What is new is support for DirectX 9. So we didn't have that before. So a lot of the esports games and a lot of the things based on DS9 are going to be much more smooth with Crimson. The next feature we have is custom resolutions. So one of the things that we found out from our users is that they would like to have the ability to define the custom resolution for their monitor, along with the timing, the refresh rate, and the pixel clock of that monitor. So now we've delivered that capability, and we do permit users to select their own custom resolutions and set it up on their needed basis. The next thing I'd like to talk about just for a minute is the virtual super resolution. So virtual super resolution is a feature that we introduced last year with Catalyst Omega. And virtual super resolution was very interesting for gaming. You can crank up the resolution of your rendering, and when it shrank down to whatever size monitor you had, the image would look crisper and cleaner and better than it looked natively. Now with Windows 10, we're able to do the same kind of usage scenario, but in productivity. So what you see in this image on the right there, the top one, is how, if let's say you had a laptop that was 1920 by 1080, and you have a spreadsheet open, and you have a web browser open, and you have a game open or a game menu. What you see on the top is how all those things arranged would appear on your desktop. Now with super virtual resolution and with Windows 10, you can increase the resolution, let's say 2560 by 1440, and what happens is that you're rendering much more space and you're fitting it into your current panel. So all of a sudden, if you look at that image, you see the spreadsheet has many more columns available, it has a few more rows available, and you just simply have, you can see the whole menu of the game where, as before, it was hidden by the web browser. So essentially what you're doing is you're getting, for a fraction of the cost, you're getting a much more increased workspace. This is a nice feature. It's not really a new feature that we've provided. We're just talking about the benefit of being able to do this. Before you couldn't do it because Windows 8 and Windows 7 didn't have the good scaling that Windows 10 has built into it. So with a combination of Windows 10 and the Crimson, you now have the ability to increase your workspace and have some money savings by getting a better monitor output than you would have had without this feature. Let me jump a little bit to the video features. So if you look at the image on the left and compare it to the image on the right on the split screen, hopefully you can see it. But essentially the white area at the bottom where it might be houses or anything like that is much more blurry, and then the rivers alongside of it are much more blurry than on the right side. And the reason is because the left one is how it natively looks. The right one is applying our video features, and the new ones you can see in the yellow bolded text on the left. So smoother motion and reduced motion blur is available, and the advanced detail enhancement for sharper images. This feature now, what's new about it in particular is that it's available on APUs. So in the past, this was a discrete graphics level feature. So you needed a discrete Radeon graphics card to take advantage of this feature. Now, with Crimson, we're able to modify the algorithms and improve them so that they're actually available on the APUs as well. Another video feature is called directional scaling. And essentially what it does is if you have a 1080p video and you're playing it on a 4K display, what happens is you'll get aliasing. So if you look at the image on the left where it says constant scaling, by around the light of the car there, you can actually see that it's not very clear. It's almost anti-aliased, or sorry, it's aliased on the line that's kind of going up diagonally. On the right-hand side, we've applied the algorithm, the filtering, the directional filtering, and hopefully you can see that it's much more smooth. So the way I like to describe that is almost anti-aliasing for video is what this is. Another video feature is dynamic contrast being content adaptive. So what that means is in this scene here, let's say you're watching a movie and you see that there's a picture of a mountain, and the mountain's got some fresh white powdery snow, which is supposed to be as white can be. And beside it, you have the shadows of the mountain and the trees and all that, and that's kind of a dark area in the scene. So in this scene, there's some very bright whites and some very dark blacks, and that's kind of the contrast that you need to make sure is visible as you're watching your video. What we've done is we've introduced an adaptive algorithm, and this algorithm will adjust with each video. So the amount of contrast that appears on this video will be quite high. On a video that doesn't have so much doesn't have such contrast in the scene and colors, won't be applied as much. The end result means, of course, that you get the best experience per video, and you don't get the same experience across the board. Okay, so I will take a breath here because that was kind of the largest section in the deck, which of course is the feature section. So we talked about the user experience and the very important new Radeon settings. We talked about a whole bunch of features, and as Sasha mentioned in the summary at the beginning, there's about 12 of them or so that's included in this release. The next section is performance, so we'll look at some of the performance improvements we have in Radeon Software Crimson. The first is a performance improvement due to a new feature. This feature is called Shader Cache, and what Shader Cache does is it compiles the shaders. So if you know how games work, typically there's shaders, and these shaders need to be compiled at the beginning of each level or at the beginning of each scene. So what we've done is we found a way to be able to store these shaders on your storage device, whether it be SSD or hard drive. And by being able to load those up, you're actually doing it faster than it would take to compile them. And there's two benefits. The first is that games simply load faster. So in this example, we look at Star Wars Battlefront. It actually loads up to 33% faster. And that's because a lot of these shaders are now being loaded as opposed to being compiled. Same kind of thing with stutter and latency. When you start a game, what you probably have noticed is that as the level starts, there's a little pause. And the little pause is very common to gaming, and it happens because, again, the shaders are being compiled. Well, we've eliminated that, and because they're available in real time, they don't need to compile, so you get rid of that stuttering at the beginning of levels. And that's what this chart shows, is the blue line is what happens today. You see there's a big spike there around frame 1701 or 1801. There's a big spike, and then there's a couple more aftershock spikes after that. So that's kind of what happens today. As of next week with the Crimson Edition driver, it'll be behaving as the red line. So that'll be much more smoother, and hopefully that'll eliminate the stutter at the beginning of a level. We've also put in some work on DX12. So DirectX 12 is very important and very interesting for us at AMD. It's an API that we like a lot. It's an API that we are very happy that Microsoft introduced because it brings the programming model down to the lowest level of the GPU and gets directly closer to the metal or closer to the GPU itself. And what we've done is we were able to optimize. There isn't that much DX12 content out there already, but we're working hard to make sure that we have the best DX12 experience. And what you see in this example is we're 20% faster on Fable Legends benchmark. Next slide shows another set of optimizations we've done. And of course, this is for a bunch of different games. And the point of this is that we put an emphasis on the latest games. So every title you see here is the latest and greatest games and or benchmarks there are. And we've put some emphasis in there and done some improvements on those things. This is just a sample of the improvements we've done. You can take a look at the driver yourself and do your benchmarking and how. Aside from Windows, Linux is quite interesting to us as well. So we did do some OpenGL optimizations, and with these OpenGL optimizations, we do have better Linux performance in a bunch of games. So not much to say about on this chart, but you can take a look at the numbers and you can see some of the performance we've delivered for Linux. Another feature is optimizing our flip queue size. And essentially what that means is now we're reducing the latency from the keyboard and the mouse. So before, what would happen is at the bottom of the pictures, so Catalyst 15.71 is the bottom one. As you're playing the game, as you're moving the mouse, we would kind of wait 3 frames before we sent back the position of the mouse or the mouse click. And that would, in this example, takes 51 milliseconds. What we've now done is we've brought it down to 1 frame. So we're queuing that up, and the result is we're at 17 milliseconds in between capturing the position and the information about the mouse and the keyboard. So this is the end result of this one is it makes a more responsive and a more real-time update of the mouse and the keyboard. The last section I have for today is efficiency or power savings. So let me tell you about some of the power savings we've introduced with Crimson. The first is expanding the frame rate target control feature. So this is a feature we launched last year, and it's a very, very interesting feature. What it does is it lets the user define what their frame rate target should be. So let's look at an example first. So in this example, the game is called Rocket League, and it's running at 1080p. And by default, the bar on the right, when you're running this game by default, you get about 90 frames per second. And when you're getting those 90 frames per second, you're consuming 175 watts of system power. What you do now is go to frame rate target control and say, you know what, 90 frames a second is too much. I don't need 90 frames a second. My eye can't detect 90 frames a second. The human eye, typically is maxed out at about 60 frames per second. That's kind of where you get a good, what we consider a good gaming experience. So you say, well, let's not go for 60 frames a second. Let's not go for 90 frames a second. Let's go for 55 frames per second. So you enable frame rate target control, and what you see is a drastic reduction in power. So what used to take 175 watts now only takes 61 watts. And that's very interesting because you really don't see a difference in the game as you're playing it, but you're saving a ton of system and GPU power. So, of course, the benefit of that is if you're playing your game on a laptop, on your battery, you get much more battery life out of it. Or if you're just playing it at home on your desktop, you just decrease your overall electricity bill or your consumption of electricity by enabling this feature. So this is kind of the background of what that feature is. It's we've enhanced it, and the enhancements are now that it supports DirectX 9 games, so all the eSport and all the older games, this feature is now available for, which is quite interesting. And we've also adjusted the range of targets, of the frames per second target, from 30 to 200. So you can select anywhere from 30 to 200, and you can play around and see what kind of electricity or power savings that you'll get. The other one, we don't have much text for because this is kind of our magic. This is our voodoo kind of thing where we told our engineers, go figure out what we're doing with different power states and different things happening in the GPU as different things are happening, and make it better. Quite simply, that's the challenge that we gave our engineers, and they went and they came back with very good success. So, for example, in the bar chart, the bottom bar talks about watching videos. The video in this example is the new Star Wars movie, the one that's being released next month. If you go look at the trailer of that on YouTube in high definition, and you compare how much power is being consumed on your system with today's driver, publicly available driver, and what's coming in Crimson, we actually see that it's 21% better with the new driver. So we've decreased the power consumption quite a bit. And the same kind of example applies for gaming. So gaming with the frame rate target conversion and these generic optimizations, these magic optimizations I'm talking about. We've done a bunch of tests, and we see, in our scenario here, 23% better. So kind of overall, we've tweaked and adjusted our power and have brought a better experience and power savings to our users. That's kind of it for the user features. I have this slide, which is for developers. So we do have some updates for developers as well. I won't spend time talking about all the points on this slide other than the titles. So we now have some OpenCL 2.0 optional features being supported, and they're listed below. And then we also have an update to our profiling tool called CodeXL. So AMD CodeXL is now up to version 1.9 and has all those cool things listed there. Not really of interest to end users or you guys that are covering the end user, but if developers are your audience, then they would certainly be interested in these two updates as well. So in essence, this is our summary slide. This is, if somebody came up to me on the street and said, what are you doing here in Korea? I'd say, well, I'm launching this new software package. And you'd say, oh, really? Tell me about it. This is what I would say. So it's incredible new user interface, and it starts up 10 times faster. We have a bunch of new features, and as I described, there's about 12 of them that are either new or enhanced. We have some pretty decent performance improvements for different scenarios, and we have some really good power savings up to 1.8 times, as we showed in the FRTC example. For the people that like more detail, the next slide has a list of all the features and everything we talked about. So this is kind of our big money shot, I guess, of the encyclopedia version of everything that was in this deck. This is what's new. This is what Radeon Software Crimson Edition is, and this is what we will be delivering to our end users next week. So I'll end here by saying we gave an update today on the middle circle, which is our end users. We also gave a little bit of an update on ecosystems, and by ecosystems, what we really mean is virtual reality, because it's an ecosystem, because not only does it depend on our hardware and our software, it depends on virtual reality headsets, it depends on operating system support, it depends on content, whether it be game or movies or other type of vertical applications. So we've provided an update on that ecosystem. The last one that you see in this image is developers. So even though I gave a very slight update on some new developer features, the reason why this one is not checked off and is still missing is because we have a very significant developer update happening very shortly as well. That's not a topic for today. It is a topic for a soon-to-be date, and we'll roll out that information to you very shortly. So essentially, that's kind of what we came here to tell you about. Thank you for the time to come listen to us. Radeon Software Crimson, we wanted to redesign it, we wanted to refine it, and we wanted to supercharge it, and that's kind of everything that we had today. So I'll pass it back to Gareth to take us the home stretch.